we already talked about this, like the way the new metal, like trash culture, for lack of a better term, of WWF, new metal, Jerry Springer. It's like all
dude culture, bro culture.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But see, I would never call that trash. I would say, well, anyway, whatever. But you're saying,
I mean it with love. I mean it. I don't mean trash.
Okay.
Like, no. I say that as someone who has rolled around in the muck of the trash culture.
You got to pay attention though, because that mud is not always just mud. As we learned from the documentary.
But like.
Welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast that definitely never downloaded Metallica songs on Napster. The podcast that'll also treat you with dignity if you enter our mosh pit. We will hold space. True. We will hold safe space.
Yes.
I'm Merinda Simmons.
And I'm Mike Altman. I definitely did. There was like an urban legend that if you downloaded, like Metallica would find out and come after you if you downloaded their song. I remember this.
Do you know? Okay, so we're talking about the HBO documentary, or Max.
It is now HBO Max. They've gone back to that now.
Okay.
So you were still right.
Woodstock 99.
Yeah.
Peace, Love, and Rage. It's the first part of their, I think it was the first installment of their music box series.
I didn't know that was a series. So we did this.
There's one on Alanis Morissette and her making of Jagged Little Pill. There's one on Little Nas X.
Interesting.
DMX is another one.
Okay.
I don't know. I think they have one on like
to plumb the depths of this.
Yeah. There's not it doesn't seem like there's like a specific kind of topical through line, but
yeah,
that's what we're talking about. And the one thing that I did not actually feel like was really connected to other parts of this documentary was the Napster thing. It was kind of like a thing, like Lars.
I think it was about like
there was new technology
and something about Lars Ulrich being just like
cranky old man.
Yeah,
but then people were really like stoked that Metallica was there at Woodstock 99.
Yes. I don't think that the tide had fully turned against them quite yet. I don't know. But that was
anyway.
Yeah.
Were you ever on Napster? Did you ever have a Napster account?
Oh, yes. No, so much Napster. Constantly. Like
do you know anybody who still has a Napster account?
I don't
would anybody admit?
It went away. And I remember when it went away. It's come back. It came back. It tried to come back as a legit service at one point. But I don't think it lasted long.
Someone very dear to me still uses Napster.
Really?
I know. And I choose to just like compartmentalize that and make it not, affect our friendship.
I didn't know. But it's like a music service now. It's not like the old days where you're downloading.
Is it not? I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
Anyway, okay.
So you never heard of LimeWire? Which was what happened after Napster got sued.
Yes. But I never like plumbed the depths of that whole rabbit hole.
I've been,
and is not something that I expected us to talk about, but that was your opener line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was what came to mind.
Oh.
Because, I think it's very much, I actually think Napster, we can get into it, but I do think it actually is a key piece of this because of the kind of like, just the kind of assumption of ownership that so many of the attendees had at Woodstock. It's that same, like, there's rich people out there. Granted, I'm a middle-class white dude, but they're way richer people than me, and they're making a lot of money off of me. And so, like, fuck
that's
Metallica.
A really good point.
I'm going to just take this stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, sure.
And I think because, like, I was like, it made me think about how much of my life, how long, like, since I was probably 12 years old, I was pirating media off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, using MIRC chat platform to then download music and movies. Anyways,
who are we, Michael? Who are we and what are we doing? I think, is this the last installment of our summer series?
This is the last installment. Yes.
Happy July, everybody.
Yes, I think this episode comes out.
We're all hot and tired, but we're not going to set anything on fire.
Not yet.
Not literally.
Yes, we'll set a lot of figurative fires with our hot takes about this documentary. But this wraps up this will come out July 30th.
Okay.
No, this will come out.
It doesn't matter.
July 28th.
We're two religious studies professors.
But my
We're
point
clearly at the end of
is
summer.
this is the end of summer. By the time the next one comes out, school will have started.
Truth.
I'll be writing syllabi.
Yeah, you will.
And
Ooh.
should we say what we're going to do next?
It'll
Like,
make it real.
It'll make it. It'll
because
really.
we kept saying that we were going to do it, and then we put it off, and then it would come back, and then I would say, "Ooh, but here's maybe this idea, but then we could do this." And
I think if we put it down,
I'm clearly stalling. So sure, why don't you just say it?
Next time we are going to do the vow season 1.
Okay,
that is my vow.
Okay.
Having not seen any of them and not sure what that actually might mean in the context of the documentary series, but as someone told me, like the thing that started it all. That was what I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they were saying, like, have you done the vow yet?
It is a very classic, yeah. And the summer, we've been playing around with like different genres inside of the bigger umbrella called cult documentary. So we will go back to the center of a lane, press cruise control for a quick second,
and then it's all blanks after that on the spreadsheet. So if you have ideas, please reach out. Find us.
We have ideas, but we are always open and welcoming about hearing your own. So,
and if you want to reach out to us to support the show, you can find us on all the socials. Cult Favorite Pod. I actually posted like 4 TikTok videos this week.
You were busy.
Trying to be.
You just got back from vacation. Felt like spending a little time on socials.
Felt like getting on the learning some new things.
Open back up your phone.
And then also like subscribe to the show, leave us a comment or a rating or review. Anything else? We have a content warning.
I mean, we're talking Woodstock 99, baby.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some discussion of sexual assault and violence. And I am very excited to have this conversation with you because I feel like we are close in age, but also are kind of different consumer demographics.
Yes.
In very specific ways that I'm eager. I'm just really feeling excited to share this with you.
Yes.
And have this experience with you. I feel like we are going to a musical festival together.
And I think that perhaps we'll learn that our tastes are as varied as this lineup was. More on that a little bit later.
So, where were you in 1999? What did you know before? How does all this land for you?
This would have been the 99 would have been the summer between 9th and 10th grade. And yeah, I remember watching a lot of this coverage on MTV. I remember Kurt Loder being very serious and doing his Kurt Loder. We need a Kurt Loder documentary.
Love him.
And so I was very much, watched a lot of MTV, and a lot of the bands on that were featured in the documentary were bands that, they were the ones I didn't buy any of their albums, but they're the ones that I would listen to on the radio.
Were you buying albums as a 9th grader?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes, I was buying, but see, I was buying my first CD I ever bought with my own money at the Best Buy in Durham, North Carolina.
Ooh.
Was
Give us some
MXPX, Life in General.
Oh my God.
That's like the least surprising thing I could have said. I feel like
it is not. It's endearing.
But no, I was buying when I wasn't stealing stuff off Napster, I was buying mostly like emo stuff.
Okay.
Get Up Kids, a little bit of ska. But then on the radio you would hear.
Speaking of Woodstock, interestingly, now that you're saying that, the first CD that I ever bought with like my own hard-earned money was a Jimi Hendrix CD.
That's interesting. See, that's good.
Well, okay, so you felt like you were in the did you feel like you were part of the demographic? Like you were not able to just say, see your parents, I'm going up to Rome, New York. But did you feel like, ooh, these are your bands?
These were bands that I was very much aware of. 9th grade, there's a kid in front of me who was really into metal, and so we would talk in my chemistry class. The girl I had a crush on was behind me. He was in front of me, and we would talk about metal. And so that's when I think I went to see. I think that summer I saw Godsmack.
That's such a perfect like high school sandwich: the girl you have a crush on and the metal dude.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, and then we would work on our chemistry labs together.
Perfect.
And
okay.
Anyways.
Well, in the summer of 1999, I was 18.
Yeah.
So I had just.
You could have gone.
I had just graduated from high school, and I guess I could have gone, but this is where like you share lore, I share like demographic awareness or something. Like this was just not new metal.
Yeah.
Was not new metal was never made for me.
No. No.
So I was just like, in the documentary we hear this kind of music distinction and this cultural distinction, really this trajectory from when Nirvana kind of just explodes onto the scene and changes everything. Then Kurt Cobain dies, and in the wake of like how quickly grunge becomes commercialized and marketed, it makes the way for something else, and what came in the way. I was still mourning what was lost, I guess.
See, I think
that was what I was.
And I think that little
was
bit
for
of
me.
that few years difference is like,
yes,
I was encountering Pearl Jam and Nirvana at the same time I was encountering Creed and Limp Bizkit and a bunch of the new metal bands that aren't in the documentary. We'll get to that later. So I think like that to me is a little bit of, but also recognizing like, oh, clearly like Scott Stapp is like the Sam's Club version of Pearl Jam. Like that's like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I
can see I can see the way you're caught. Like it's like the old joke, like I liked Coldplay the first time around when they were called U2.
Okay. But I did so this was not a festival that was geared toward me. Yeah. However, I felt like all of the new metal bands that were very much part of Woodstock 99 were it was the music that I could not escape. It was the music that was everywhere and that was all around. And so I still felt very immersed in it, even though I did not actually choose it. It was like I was swimming in a pool that someone else had peed in, and I couldn't get away.
You just can't get away from Fred Durst.
Yeah, and I mean, there was definitely like, well, yeah. Anyway, that's where I was in. That's where I was in the summer of '99.
All right. So what's going on with this documentary?
Here's what happened, and we will talk about why we're even talking about this in relation to our bigger theme of cult documentaries. But this covers the, would-be best party of the 90s and the prelude to the new millennium, which is important. That turned into a fiery riot and 3 deaths and widespread sexual harassment and assault. It was planned by the original, like, organizers of Woodstock. Like, Michael Lang was someone who was there in '69, and they projected. So they were these boomers, former hippie boomers, who projected their own nostalgia and money-making ambitions onto a new generation.
Imagine that.
The documentary moves mostly linearly through the 3-day festival. It was Friday through Sunday. But it speaks to, larger context along the way. So here is the prelude. Here is that general context. I don't know that a lot of people know that there was also or I don't know, maybe it's part of the cultural lore that like Woodstock 94 was a thing, because it was 69. That's the one that we hear the most about. But there was also a Woodstock 94 that, did okay. They in the retelling, which is going to become important. But there were really big problems with each one. It's just that we have these myths that get created in the aftermath. Have you ever seen the original, like the documentary of the original, like that came out in 1970?
No, I have not.
I mean, it's
I can imagine what it is.
But. Was it nominated for? Did it win? Like an Oscar for best documentary? I think you'll have to like Google double check me on that. But that documentary was really it played a big part in creating this myth of a return to the garden, hippies experiencing togetherness and free love outside of a society that had run, like politically amok. And so it was peace, love, and music. That was the narrative. But stuff went down in 69 too.
Yeah.
So part of, part of this whole story is exactly that, of like who tells a story and how, and, frankly, the importance of documentaries and creating narratives through ostensible descriptive reporting of various events. Anyway, after the 1994 festival, the organizers and promoters are like, let's do this every 5 years. How about? And we can recreate what matters to us. They choose, because boomers are good at that, they choose Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York for the 1999 festival. This is a retired Air Force base. There was lots of open acreage, and it was also importantly fortified from like people couldn't just come in without tickets. Like you couldn't really break into this festival.
Yeah, there's a lot of gate crashing in 94 apparently.
Lots of gate crash, because all that they were separated from was was a chain link fence. Anyway, but the temperatures were high. And inside of this, I mean, it's an Air Force base too, so like there is nary a spot of shade or tree to be found. So temperatures are high. It's really, really hot. Water is hard to come by. Porta potties quickly back up. Sewage was everywhere. Again, within the first 24 hours, like it got gnarly fast.
Yeah.
Security, like the so-called Peace Patrol,
the Peace Patrol
is generally untrained and inattentive. They're letting people in with drugs because they're willing to turn a blind eye to that. There is also
but not food and water.
You cannot bring food and water. We have vendors for those things. Bring your drugs, though. It's fine. There was also nearly a mile's walk between the main stages. So like people are tired and thirsty and frustrated and angsty. And the demographic itself is described by one attendee as, quote, a lot of white boys wearing backward baseball caps. Frat crowd is like a phrase or a term that comes up a lot for people in the documentary. And so it is reflecting the tastes of and catering very specifically to a young white male crowd. We hear about late 90s music scene reflecting and catering to that crowd. While the economy was generally good, society was pretty top down and the power was kind of increasingly centralized. And so, Jewel is one of the people who gets interviewed for this documentary. She's one of 3 female acts that is invited to play at Woodstock. One on each day. Jewel. Did you have her CD?
No, anyway, I like Jewel. Big fan of Jewel. No.
Jewel said
it's just a Jewel and like Limp Bizkit.
What are you doing?
Right. That's where I'm like, yeah.
What are you doing, organizers? So Jewel says at one point, like her description of this demographic, but also this generational moment is that, that we didn't really have anything to like, we didn't have much in the way of purpose or like something to feel united behind. So, at the same time, like Columbine, that school massacre, that shooting had happened 3 months prior. And we're hearing in the news in that moment more and more about this disaffected, angry generation of young men who do feel aimless and unseen. Tariq Trotter from The Roots talks in the documentary about also like the anxiety at the eve of this new millennium.
Yeah.
People were stressed out about Y2K.
I told you this before we recorded. Like I watched this, most of this with my 15-year-old son, and trying to explain.
So he was he's now about the same age that you were then.
He is exactly the same age I was then. We had that conversation, which was funny.
Yeah.
And he is way more well-adjusted than I was at that time. But like if you want some fun, try to explain Y2K to a 15-year-old. Like
there's a pretty good.
They were worried.
Yeah.
That the numbers would go to 0, and everything would break. And he's like, wait. They're worried that there's only 2 digits and the whole, like, yes, and that's gonna be the end of the world. Yes. And it's just like it was, but
also
we'd all just put stuff into the like it was all new. Like we all put our stuff into this thing.
It felt big.
And then the people were like, that thing could break at any moment. And we're like, why do we put all our stuff in it?
It's big. It's unfamiliar. transitions are tricky in the best of times. And so there's a lot of angst, there's anxiety. Enter new metal bands like Limp Bizkit, Korn, Insane Clown Posse, like Papa Roach, POD. These were the ones that like came most quickly to mind for me. Mosh pits became a phenomenon at shows. New metal is like it's heavy metal meets hip hop.
Yeah. Ish. Yeah.
Ish.
Because like I think like Limp Bizkit is
how it's typically described anyway.
Definitive new metal band. Although Linkin Park is also given a lot of credit for that.
Linkin Park, yeah.
But then some of these that they
Korn was like one of the first.
Yeah,
you know.
but is Korn? I don't know. I mean,
yes,
Korn didn't have a lot of hip hop to it though.
It's. I mean, whatever. Follow the rabbit hole, but
I don't know.
But yeah, there's.
I'm trying to protect my little like the ones I liked. I'm like, sure, we can all shit on Limp Bizkit, but like leave Korn and System of a Down alone.
It's okay. It's okay. It's
because I think there's a political difference amongst these bands. Maybe that's important.
We're going to talk. This is part of what we're going to get into because I do think it's important simultaneously, like, or just in the project of not generalizing and universalizing an entire genre or group of people or generation. I think too that then maybe that allows us to see connections between things that we might otherwise want to kind of like compartmentalize for the sake of protecting.
I think that's
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so whoever does or does not fit into this category, it's pretty masculinist.
Yes. No, that's true.
It's really snarky. It's generally misogynistic. One of the things that came up in the documentary that I thought was a really important kind of, just contextual point is that this was also the year of Fight Club.
Yes.
And Fight Club, I think, really is this perfect distillation of that character amplified into a symbol.
Yeah. It was my favorite movie in 9th grade, I would say for sure. Like
so 3 women were this is but part of the work of critical thinking is self-reflection and self-awareness. So we're going to get curious about our own behavior and our own norms. 3 women, as I said, were booked out of over 50 acts. It was Alanis Morissette, Jewel, and Sheryl Crow. One on each day.
But this raised an interesting question to me.
Okay, give me.
Because I was like, well, what women acts should they have booked for the new metal? Like, no.
Okay.
I know you've got a list, but it's not a list that was like, to what extent is this a Woodstock 99?
Yes.
These 2 boomers putting this together lineup problem? And what is it actually a top 40 rock radio charts problem, right?
Okay.
Because like I've gone down, my daughter loves metal music, but also only wants to listen to women singers. And so like I'm digging up like Evanescence and like here you go.
Oh my God.
Like
B?
Yes.
She loves metal.
She loves metal.
Oh, sweetie. And
I'm like, here's like, no, we've found stuff. But when you think about
Evanescence. You get Auntie Merinda to make her a playlist is what you need to do.
Yeah, she has a playlist.
Because there were a lot of really
Friend
important...
of the show, Alex, has seen B's playlist.
Good,
yes.
good.
Yes.
Well...
But my point is, if you're thinking what's on the top, like
top 40s is important.
Yes.
Because these promoters, so it's who we hear like mostly from and about are Michael Lang, who is the original organizer, and John Scher. He's the promoter. Both of them have very specific ways that they will tell a story about Woodstock. John Scher, we hear a lot from in the documentary, and he's convinced that the whole festival just suffered from misrepresentation. It's
all MTV's fault.
Listen,
and it's Limp Bizkit and MTV's fault.
It's and like women are at fault for being topless.
That was a rough moment.
Kurt Loder is at fault for being MTV's like news anchor. Like he will place a lot of blame in a lot of individuals. But his like motivation and priority in making the bookings was very much to do with who are the most popular acts in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, of course, if you're looking at the most popular, like if that's your priority, well, then you are going to reach for top 40s stuff.
Right.
You're not going to go to independent labels. You're not going to reach for people who like were making all sorts of like really popular music, but were not, whatever, attached to corporate sponsorship in the same way, yada, yada, yada. Enter MTV, because MTV really was the reflection of what was popular culturally, musically in that moment. But this is a really interesting time for MTV because MTV was simultaneous. And I think that you and I are maybe, this is another kind of like interesting moment where like I wonder if you and I watched MTV differently because
Probably.
there was a sense of like early on MTV was very counterculture. It was where you would go to like see what was happening kind of on if you wanted to be edgy and if you were looking for things outside of what you would find like whatever on your parents' radio stations, MTV was your place. In 99 though, it is playing new metal stuff. It's playing Limp Bizkit and Offspring or whatever, but it's also playing Backstreet Boys.
Yes.
And teen pop is also very much like its star is exploding in the sky in like radical fashion. So, Dave Holmes is a VJ. Love Dave Holmes.
Dave Holmes has had a glow up.
He rules.
He looks amazing. I don't know. I always remembered him as like the kind of squirrely guy on MTV next, and and then he comes on the screen. I'm like, Dave Holmes.
He said,
"Sorry, those eyes."
He said, I've never been so grateful to not be Carson Daly as I was in 1999 when we went to Woodstock, because Carson Daly was really the face of MTV. But Dave Holmes was another VJ, and I liked the way that he put it. A lot of people were mad at MTV because it felt like they had taken their MTV away and given it to their little sister. So the MTV shows up to cover Woodstock, and people are pissed. Anyway, they're throwing things at that's a rabbit hole that you can go down if you want to like look into MTV's
but it's another example of
treatment
everyone getting mad at the people in charge, even though they depend on those same people in charge. Like most of those people who are mad at MTV are still watching MTV. So all the bands that they came to see are on MTV. Yeah. And so it's this like performative, like fuck you, but also I do kind of still like that sort of frames all of this. Like we hate Metallica, but I mean we still buy albums. Like I'm saying, like the same thing.
The documentary goes through each day. We hear excerpts from David DeRocha's journal. He's a person he's an attendee who will end up dying in his own efforts to see Metallica and get to the front row. And he experiences hyperthermia, like his body is dangerously overheated, so we hear from his one of his friends that he attended the festival with, but we also get excerpts from his journal, which I think are pretty powerful, like to get those little snippets because it shows his excitement and his band reviews. But we're also, in the descriptions of each day, hearing from different acts. So like Moby is there. Jewel, as I said, Jonathan Davis from Korn, right? Noodles and Dexter Holland, from Offspring, Tariq Trotter. Anyway, they're talking about just the energy is off.
Yeah.
From day one, if you're a performer, as they arrive, they're just experiencing something is off. And it deserves being said, the stage is really separated from the crowd.
Yeah.
And so there's not this, like you can't connect with the audience in the same way that you would in regular shows. we start hearing about how the crowd becomes its own hostile entity, like from jump. New York Times critic Wesley Morris is interviewed for this documentary, which I really appreciated. He always has smart things to say. But his take on DMX, like the DMX set, I thought was just such a good point. Because like, here is this audience of mostly white people just gleefully using the N-word in order to kind of participate in this show. And so what becomes a real like primary point in the documentary is exactly that, like what a crowd context makes possible and permissible. And how, I mean, ultimately, if we're trying to get curious about this instead of just judgmental, like how intoxicating that must be to suddenly be outside of normal societal rules. You're in this festival setting, and now just all things are possible. But then that also creates a space where very few people, like only a specific demographic is safe.
Oh yeah.
So all things are possible, but not all people are safe.
Yeah.
So the organizers are also selling this by way of pay-per-view. The cameramen are selling their own narrative. Like the focus really becomes all of these topless women. Exploitation is described in the film as a like literal business model.
Yeah.
And so we go through each day, culminates on Sunday night with fire and looting, and the police very politely breaking things up, you know, because it is a crowd of a very specific kind of demographic. So the aftermath, we have 3 deaths, 8 sexual assaults that are reported, 4 of which were alleged rapes. But of course, like estimates are that was much higher.
Yeah.
44 arrests were made. The first person charged with sexual assault was actually a New York State prison guard, and he was charged with assaulting a 15-year-old girl. So I think that this gives us all sorts of places to go conversationally. Where do you want to go first?
All right. So I first want to ask you, why you thought this would fit our little project here.
I mean, this is very much our usual thematic arc. It's, a story about what draws people in and how, why, what goes wrong when systemic issues are not addressed and or are actively ignored. One of the things, like Michael Lang, when they interviewed him in '69, they were like, what's the hardest thing about this whole enterprise? And he's like, probably dealing with the city. like it's the system surrounding something is like, it's not just ignored. It's like an active antagonist, as they see it. Anyway. So what draws people in, what happens when systemic issues are not addressed, and then what kinds of narratives and stories we create in the aftermath to make sense of it, and who we tend to blame. Like in this case, again, John Scher, the promoter, is resorting to a lot. He calls Fred Durst a moron lots of times. So Fred Durst is the one taking the blame for inciting a riot. David DeRosa is responsible for his own death because here were his health issues or whatever. Women are responsible for their own sexual assault because they are topless. That generation just has a bad attitude in ways that my generation in '69, or like it is so. Anyway, so there is that familiar arc, narratively, and then the ways that it tends to get projected, where we look to make sense by placing individual blame, seems familiar in a lot of the kinds of stories that we're that we've been talking about. So that's why I wanted to talk about this.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, I think along that line, like I think one of the things the documentary does really well is use this event to get at a lot of what's happening
Mhm.
and then try to draw um through lines to today.
Mhm.
So I think it's also I think interesting. So there's that piece of it, which I think we've talked about already some, but there's also the way that like we're also in this odd like there's a lot of interest in the 90s right
Mhm.
now. I
Mhm.
mean, like 90s fashion has come back in a weird
I mean,
way.
isn't that because like we're the people who are middle-aged now? Like the people who came of age in the 90s are middle-aged now, and we're the generation like
But that doesn't explain why
making
like
stuff.
20-year-olds are wearing chains like we did in 1997 again. And why like
Right.
the jean
The
cuts are
trends and
back.
stuff.
Like,
Sure.
yeah, right. And there's just seems to be a lot. I mean, we've covered like in some ways when you think about like the Jerry Springer documentary, the Mr.
Yeah.
McMahon documentary, which covers a long period, but
Mhm.
the bulk of it is either on the end but the bulk of it really is on like the 90s. I mean, the Attitude Era.
Mhm.
And then this one,
Mhm.
there's just I just I think and looking at those three, I mean,
Mhm.
like Limp Bizkit did the theme song for The Undertaker in WWF. There's a whole series. Like there was all of these bands were all over WWF in the 90s.
Mhm.
And then like the Jerry Springer of it all, the pay-per-view aspect, the the show your tits aspect, all of it.
The very, I was going to say, the very specifically masculinist ethos
Yeah.
that governs all of those
Like
spaces that you just identified.
all three of these things
Yes.
are like they're all like literally and both literally and thematically,
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
And around this with the same, I think, demographic audience.
Yes.
Of
And so I think
angry
it's
young white dudes.
yes, but it's an interesting so in relation to something called cults, I think that there is a good opportunity that this presents to think about um what we find compelling, what we get swept up in, what we are culpable in, complicit with, like those kinds of questions that keep coming up where like to explain cults, we want to talk about what draws people in.
Yes. Yeah.
But then also just impossibly separate them from our own senses of thinking and being such that, even when those documentaries have like the moment of, we should like whatever, nobody joins a cult, everybody it can happen to
It can
anyone,
happen to
whatever.
anybody, yeah.
The like that's sure true, but it's also happening inside of a documentary that is calling something a cult.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
like there is this just this not even implicit, like it's an explicit separation and
Mhm.
and classificatory division that stacks up a kind of us them dynamic whereby we can feel safe because we identify the people who are susceptible to a charismatic, manipulative leader
Yeah.
who will exploit them. In this case, while we hear from only one person who has anything to say about like, yeah, I was throwing bottles too. Like nobody,
Yeah. We don't hear from
you
anybody.
know?
Yeah.
The vast majority of the people are like those are the images we have. But it's really hard to find interviews with people who will sit down and be like, yeah, I groped this woman because she had
Yeah.
her top off and
Yeah.
everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
Like nobody's, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think that this is an opportunity where it's a little bit more difficult to just kind of point to this small group of people who were up to whatever with
Right.
this leader. And it's like, oh, here's a for-profit corporate enterprise with lots of charismatic leaders doing all, like the phenomenon of how celebrity works, but also the phenomenon of how just festival organization and how just like pop culture promotion works, who they draw in, how they are able to get people, and how they can create a crowd of 250,000 people who are hopping up and down together, shouting the N-word or grabbing women's breasts or setting things on fire. Or so I just think it's, like John Scher wants to say, young people are always going to be, you're always going to have some bad apples. Everybody's always going to be a jerk. You're always going to have that person in the bunch. But it's like, I think this is a little more complicated. So
that makes a lot of sense. And it gets at like watching it with the 15-year-old, and he was like, I just don't understand why these people are so mad. They have everything. And I realized that like that they were mad because that was the way that the most money could be made off of them. So like we talked, like there's a line in there about, people thought like MTV had been taken from them and given a little sister, right? And I immediately thought of there's that. So you have like the kind of Limp Bizkit versus Backstreet Boys, or Limp Bizkit versus Britney Spears.
Sure.
Right after that, like in this exact same moment, here comes Eminem, and there's the music video. I'm trying to remember which song it is, but it's the video has this scene of like a fictional MTV Awards with a fake Fred Durst and a fake Christina.
Right.
So like now I'm going to get you pissed off at both of them.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and so there's this like constant swirl of
you're always reacting.
You're always reacting and pointing and laughing and talking about how fucked up these other people are.
Right.
And that's the next move. Right. And so there's a way that like the reason it was beneficial to the record labels and to the media and to MTV. Like, I don't think John Scher is right to blame it all on MTV, but like the fact is MTV is making a ton of money off the ratings it gets from documenting this. Like, like, and so I'm like, yes,
it is a byproduct too of this bigger phenomenon.
It is not, it is not
it's not an innocent,
nonprofit investigative journalist outfit. So they're invested in the same thing, right? Like the first thing I think I remember seeing was the fires during the Red Hot Chili Peppers show on MTV, MTV News.
That's right.
So, but it also got me thinking. Like the other thing that was this fear, not fear, but this cultural concern and hand wringing about angry young white men.
Yeah,
it's been, like, whether it's sort of the incel stuff that you read now, like it was interesting to realize like this is like not a late web 2.0 Reddit phenomenon. It existed when we didn't really, like, the internet was nothing but like Napster, right? And GeoCities sites. And so there's a way that, like, I think that question, and so that got me thinking. And so one thing that I did, because I was thinking about like one of the things that's interesting about this sort of riot, or whatever you want to call it, is if you compare it to other events, like say, like LA in 1992, or a variety of other kind of like it stands out because it is these sort of mostly white middle upper class. Like, it was expensive to go to, et cetera, et cetera. But then it got me thinking about the other example that's like that, which was the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
Sure.
And I don't know if there's ever a way for anyone to figure this out, but I would like to know how many people at January 6th were also at Woodstock 99. Because there's a report I looked up from Seton Hall, and I'll put the link in the show description, but only 23, it looks at all the people who were charged in the January 6th attack. Only 23% of those charged were under 30. The 28% were in their 30s and 21% were in their 40s. So about half of everybody there were in the same demographic as those as targeted by Woodstock, or at least targeted by the same media.
Yeah.
And then 88% of them were men. So like, there is a story to be told about the way the boys and young men who sort of stewed in this media moment are very much the same men who are now, who were stewing in this, and what led to that insurrection, which is, I think, I don't know, I think that's kind of that to me was kind of interesting to think about as a historical moment.
Right. Well, and how, because, we're always telling stories in order to attempt to make meaning and explain things. And so how it is that we attempt explaining, what kinds of explanations do we reach for when we are talking about this demographic, and how do we respond to them when they behave badly? So like the fact that it's a few bad apples and the police come in and they're like, okay, everybody, it's time to shut this down. Party's over.
Yeah. Like, which was not dissimilar from like a lot of what happened in the Capitol attack.
So I think that, but I also think that it's important to take stock of the impulse to caricature and give kind of the characteristics of an individual to an entire generation.
Right.
This generation is like this, and here's how. Here's what they care about, and here's what they like. That generational logic is something that is decidedly not new. It is something that happens as soon as every generation ages into middle life, and we are not inside the jokes anymore. We don't get it. We don't share the same vocabulary. We don't get the references, and they aren't getting our references, and we are trying to make that make sense and keep validating ourselves and our own desire for eternal youth. And there is always this attempt then, at like caricaturing a generation.
Yeah.
And shaking our fists at the sky and telling people to get off our lawn and their music is too loud and whatever. So I think that, like, as we draw those connections, which I think are really important to do, there's also this, I don't know, just kind of thinking about how narrativizing a generation of young people and the technology that they use and what their feelings are and what they're stressed out about and what they like, just what that kind of logic allows and what it occludes or ignores.
Yeah. Anyway. I often wonder too, like, I don't know, like I see a lot of generational jokes on TikTok. And I don't know if that's because it's algorithm, the way the algorithm works. Is that just a me thing, or is that to what you were saying about like this? That's what happens at a certain point. But also they're being made by younger people. So are we just in is this a thing? Is there something happening? Is there something about? And they talk about this in the documentary. And is there something about? I want to try to narrow, because I don't want to do the same thing and just be like boomers. But there's something, but it's hard to not look at the Supreme Court and Congress and everyone in charge of everything and not notice that they're all over 55.
Sure.
But there's something about that idea that there are elites within that generation that refuse to let go of power and get out of the way. I mean, I've experienced myself in various situations in the last 5 years. And not so is there something about that has triggered a kind of generational identification, strife, frustration? I mean, I often feel like a lot of my life is spent translating between Gen Z and Gen Alpha and Boomers.
Sure.
Like a way, like
sure.
Whether and so no, what they really mean is no, they're not lazy. They're trying to figure this out. Well, no, they're not.
Wesley Morris brings up, he says something useful, I think, at one point, where he talks about like how difficult it is for people to admit that they are no longer in charge.
Yeah.
And that they will, Maureen Callahan, who was a writer for Spin, she covered Woodstock and has a lot of important points to make in the documentary as well. And she says a similar thing too, of just like, that's really difficult for people to no longer be in
But see,
charge. And so then
yeah.
we project a kind of self-important narcissism onto a generation that is younger and a generation, frankly, that we're very afraid of. like it's always this kind of,
I am less afraid of I don't, maybe that's the, I am less afraid of the younger generations than I am the
sure.
existing,
But
they text me right now.
At least Morris's point is that, like, what the way that he puts it is, a lot of what needs to get done in this country that just doesn't get done,
right,
is because of a generation that is unwilling to wrest control.
Yeah.
and a generation that is just like afraid of the next generation. Like there's so we try to so the boomers are trying to like keep hold of, you know, whatever they have, you know, control over and not give it to Gen X, and Gen X is just like not sure what to do with, like, there is always this perennial, like, we're afraid of your technology.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand your jokes. You like things that I didn't like. I don't understand that.
I don't think that's perennial though. I think that's
really?
I think that's particular to the life experience and the rate of change that happened during the boomers' lifetime. I do.
No, come on, man.
I don't think
Elvis was a like terrified people because he was like this set of hips shaking.
But
Beethoven was like giving women the passions, and people were like, this is the devil's music.
Maybe at that, I mean, I don't think that, okay, I think there might be some broad like cycle to this.
Yeah.
But I think there's something particular about, and part of it has to do with advances in medical science so that they're living longer.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it has the rapid changes in technology so that, like, Beethoven's generation did not see the kinds of technological change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the closest I could think of would be maybe if you, and I don't know, this is where I would love to talk to an early modernist, is like the Reformation, like Enlightenment era, like the printing press, that moment, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like there's something particular that makes it that is particular, and that I think will be different in 25 years when I'm 65.
Okay.
Than it is now. I could be wrong.
I don't disagree with you that we are seeing technology change at a rate that feels unprecedented. There's a good and I think that this documentary is actually really indebted to, I don't know, I wasn't able to see if Garrett Price, who was the director, like, you know, collaborated with or gave credit to, but there's this podcast, Stephen Hayden is a music critic. He made a podcast, limited series podcast for The Ringer called Break Stuff.
Well, this is a Ringer production.
Okay.
So maybe Bill Simmons is behind all of this.
Great. Because Break Stuff, I think it's like 8 episodes or so.
Yeah.
Tells the story of Woodstock 99, the story of Woodstock 99 is, it goes a little more in depth. It's able to spend some more time on some of the context and personal stories, but a lot of the same people are interviewed. A lot of them tell the same stories. A lot, like it very much, like, it follows very closely the same beats in telling the story. But one of the things that Maureen Callahan says in the podcast, she's the spin journalist, is that, you know, Woodstock 99 couldn't happen now because people have phones. Like, in 99, you didn't have cell phones. There wasn't that kind of preemptive possible, like the prospective shame of having your behavior recorded at any moment in time is something that keeps people, it's sort of an invisible check on your behavior. And And so she doesn't think that it could happen now. That said, and I don't disagree.
Well, and you couldn't, because the music industry doesn't work the same way anymore.
Right.
Try to find there's no top 40 anymore. I mean, there is, but not really.
So that's all to say. That's a long-winded way of saying I take your point and I don't disagree. But also I think that the phenomenon of technology always feeling like something that belongs to a generation that is younger and in certain ways a little savvier, but in other ways not as mature. But I think that we have always been afraid of technology, and this is my moment for like academia. Are you ready? This is my one. Okay. It's my one little like detour into like a specific academic citation. Dominic Petman is a scholar that I like a lot, and he has 20 theses on posthumanism, political affect, and proliferation. It's online. Look it up. But
you sent this to me before.
I have sent it to you.
I've read it a couple times.
Well, so one of the things, one of the lines that he uses to, like kind of kick off his points is the human is the animal that relies on technology in order to realize its humanity. And I think that point has always been the case. The rate of the proliferation, the degree to which it freaks us out or not, the way that we respond to it as a result, like that, I think, sure, like there are contextual specificities that dictate play with that.
Yeah.
But that idea of like, I understand myself as a human separated from other animal species because of the way that I can use technology.
Right.
And then now this other set of humans is using technology in a different way. And that makes me understand that like is something that is perhaps uniquely human. And also though, I think that is perennial. That has been happening ever since we like invented fire. Like that's technology. That's innovation.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense because it's through that new fangled use of the given technology that
and something new is always unfamiliar, and something unfamiliar is always a little scary.
Yeah, I do wonder though. I don't know.
Y2K.
I often think about like if I'm like 70 years old, am I gonna still be playing Xbox? Like, or look, whatever that equivalent is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
the average
Xbox,
well,
will it still even exist?
Like the average gamer right now is like 30 to 35 years old, right?
Sure.
So when I was a kid, my parents didn't play video games at all.
I have purged so many CDs, but I still have a big old stack of CDs that I can't quite, because my car still has a CD player. So like, you know what I mean? Like, will I? So,
but I guess my point is like, if we're now kind of locked into certain technologies in a way that previous generations, like the boomers, weren't, does that like there is a thing where you're going to follow the next thing, right? Like if you're a video game player, you're going to get the newest system. You're going to stay up on the newest technology. Like, so to what extent that's a difference?
And when the newest, latest, greatest renders the pre-existing obsolete.
Yeah.
Because that takes a little time. Sometimes it takes almost no time at all. And other times it takes a few like decades. So it just that is something that is always, it's like we're always swimming in like it's like you're swimming in an ocean that has just like 15 different currents and you're never quite sure which one is going to take you in which like, and there are people who study trends and do, but it's hard to predict if you're just like someone who's hanging out, and if you're a person hanging out at a music festival, your position as a human in relation to access to technology or not, or how, like, I don't know, it just becomes a really like complicated ball of wax.
Yeah, I'm always looking for grand theories. That's my problem. Like, what's the grand?
I think that grand theories are very seductive, and I think that grand theories. So and I do not say that with any snark. I have a lot of empathy for the impulse to look for grand theories. I just think that they are inevitably steeped in a lot of very specifically contextual projections.
Sure. Yeah,
and
makes sense.
that actually undercut the very grand theories that we're trying to produce.
Yeah.
So the grand theory that I create about Gen Z is very much going to project my own generational sensibilities, my expectations, my needs, my desires, my anxieties, and all of those things necessarily like
I would have been a much better
undercut.
New York Times columnist than academic. Like I could fire off a David Brooks column in no time.
It helps. It helps.
I was in a taxi cab and this thing happened, and now I will explain all of global economics.
Because we want to make sense of stuff that feels unwieldy.
Yeah.
That's why we define things. It's why we classify things. It's why we use generational logic. It's arguably why we, have trends and why we, like consume in certain ways. So it makes loads of sense. And I think that everybody is doing it to some degree all the time.
Yeah.
I think we just have to be mindful of and careful about the ways in which we participate in those impulses to create grand theories, who we're making them about, and who gets, excluded in the telling.
Yeah. I think that's accurate. I think that's very true. It won't get you published in the Atlantic, but it's true. I want to play a game. I have a game.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you have something else we need to talk about.
No.
All right. I have a game. I have 10 bands that they did not appear in the documentary.
Okay.
5 of them were at Woodstock 99.
Okay.
And 5 of them were not.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a band and you tell me if you think they were there or not.
Okay. You did tell me not to look up the lineup.
I did.
Before,
this is why I told you this.
So I want to tell the people that I have not. Okay.
Ready?
You said you had a game and I was like, I was 18 in 1999. But now I'm feeling a little nervous. Okay.
Okay. Everclear.
Not present.
They were there.
Okay.
Sugar Ray.
Yes.
They were not there. They were invited, but Mark McGrath got sick.
Damn it. That's a cheat. That's cheating. Because Marilyn Manson was also invited.
That's true. He didn't get there either. Yeah. Okay. Deftones.
I am bad at this. They were there?
No, they were not there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Willie Nelson.
Yes, he was there.
He was there. Yes.
Yeah.
Widespread Panic.
No.
That's also correct. All right. So you've gotten 2 so far. Yeah.
Except for Sugar Ray. I'm not going to take that one as a loss.
Okay. So we'll say 2.5.
Yeah. Are we grading on a curve? Ice Cube was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
Elvis Costello
was there.
So see, okay. Neil Young.
Not there.
No. Gin Blossoms.
Ooh, interesting. I feel like they should have been there. I'm going to say no.
They were not.
Yeah, because I feel like they're not.
That was more. I didn't check 94. They feel like they had to have been there in 94.
94 was definitely a bit softer.
Yeah.
Gin Blossoms, had a lot to say about their feelings.
I was waffling between Gin Blossoms.
Limp Bizkit had a lot to say about their feelings. They just, were expressing them a little differently. Anyway.
Did I do Widespread Panic?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, did you? I don't know.
I was waffling between
so many of them, honest to God, blur inside of my head in such a
last one,
profound way.
Lit.
No.
They were there. They were the only pop punk band there. Also, who was there that I did not put in here, but I was surprised was String Cheese Incident was also there, and Mo. I was like, what? It was weird.
Well, and they were also trying to have this EDM rave hangar stage.
So 2 other things. One, a bunch of the actual nu metal bands weren't there because the Family Values tour, or I'm sorry, Ozfest was happening at the same time, and so Deftones and System of a Down and Power Man, all of those bands were at Ozfest, and then except for Godsmack played Ozfest and then flew overnight to come play Woodstock. Anyways, that's what I learned from the Wikipedia page. But it was all over the place.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, the larger festival thing of the late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
because we were saying like there are only 3 women. Like Lilith Fair was 97 to 99,
Mm-hmm.
3 summers in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Warped Tour started earlier, like 94, 95, but was going on because actually think I went to Warped Tour this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the Family Values tour that Korn
Right.
organized with a bunch of these similar bands. Like, so there was something. It's interesting how much this failed, considering like all of those were successful. I mean, Warped Tour ran for years, and like when I think about like
maybe they had working toilets.
No, they did.
You know what I mean? Like I think that so much of it is just.
I went to Warped Tour around this time one summer, twice, and like once in Charlotte and once in Atlanta. Both times, just like blistering hot.
Yeah,
but it wasn't a mile between stages, and
and do people have water?
We had
access to clean water.
It wasn't nearly as many people.
That's what one of the points that Dave Holmes makes in the podcast is like, I don't know that I want to say that it's to do with like a generation. I think it was just a shitty festival.
That's another side
so
of
much
this.
Of it is,
there were plenty of other festivals that didn't have this problem. That So
anyway,
what's your takeaway? We have a takeaway.
Well, I'm gonna invoke Wesley Morris again. He says at one point that people are selective about how they remember, what they remember, and that has everything to do with who's telling the stories. And I think that's always something that I want to bring to the fore of the conversations that we have about something called cults. And it's also, like what we were saying a minute ago with the way that herd mentality works, like that, you could tell a story about how this is humanity gone wrong. This is us going off the rails. This is us at our worst. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's not untrue, but it's also as a social mechanism. This is us as a species working. This is us as social animals reading a context and a situation, understanding what a norm is, and then participating in it for group participation. Like this is how social formation works.
The same questions people throw at more traditional cult docs. You get like, why didn't they leave early? Why did you stay?
Yeah.
Why did you do this?
And this is where you can see that operating across, Jonestown we see with almost 1,000 people, and that's a lot of people. This is 250,000 people, right? And so when you see this kind of
scale is insane.
So when you see this kind of phenomenon operating on that kind of scale, I think that it is we do our own intellect a disservice by saying that it is somehow a bug and not a feature. And I think that we have to look at the ways in which this is a feature and not a bug. And, that this is another, kind of takeaway from the podcast version of this is that this also operates positively, like when people kind of band together in a disaster or an emergency situation in ways that they might not otherwise run to help people or whatever. But I think we have to understand ourselves as, like social animals who are looking to each other for cues about our own behavior. And that is, so in that sense, Woodstock is just us working.
Yeah.
And that's gross and scary, but that's also why we should, it's all the more reason why we should pay attention to it as a social phenomenon.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway? Do you have one?
Well, I know when you said that about the numbers, I was just like, $28 million.
Yeah,
$28 million gate. $28 million gate. That's insane. In 2000 or 1999 money.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But would like Rome, New York didn't make that much money.
No, and if anything, the numbers may have been underreported purposely to keep money from the city.
Totally. And now, I mean, this was something that got brought up too, but we don't have time to go into it, but like the progression or the kind of trajectory of music festivals such that Woodstock is what it is. It like lives in our brains as it does. But now we've got things like Coachella, which is just this like ultra luxe, super elite.
Well, that's the trajectory.
Like,
they all evolve this way, right?
the
Like somebody
power-
starts off,
yeah,
like Coachella started off as like fun indie stuff, and then got
Sure.
more and more expensive. Bonnaroo started off as this fun issue,
Yeah.
then it got more and more expensive.
but like the social dynamics are still there, the power
Yeah.
dynamics are still there. It's just fancier, you know?
yeah. Well, and I will say now, I'm like, I understand the people when I went to Bonnaroo. I'm like in a tent in its field, and then like you go up and there's the VIP people who are, you know, with the air condition and all this stuff. Like I look at them and they're all like in their 40s.
Literally sounds like my worst nightmare.
I understand why they did that now. That's
Literal
what I would be
worst
doing.
nightmare.
My takeaway is sort of, I wanted to like put this into the context of kind of all the stuff. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about like, on the one hand, we already talked about this, like the way the new metal, like trash culture, for lack of a better term, of WWF, new metal, Jerry Springer. It's like all
Dude culture. Bro culture.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But see, I would never call that trash. I would say, well, anyway, whatever. But you're saying.
I
Tell us
mean
what
it
you wanna
with
say.
love. I mean it. I don't mean
Oh,
trash
okay.
as
Okay.
like, no. I say that as someone who has rolled
Okay.
around in the muck of the
I
trash
see.
culture.
You got to pay attention though, because that mud is not always just mud.
Yeah.
As we learned from the documentary.
But like one of the things I was thinking about is how it's easy to read like Jesus Camp or the early days of Hillsong or the rise of the religious right in the same era in this late 90s period or a kind of transition moment of as a like reaction to that trash culture.
Right.
But
yes.
I don't know who it was.
Yes.
Um
Can you edit that part out?
Yes, I will. That is doable.
Can we
But
yes. Okay, go.
But it's easy to see that trash culture as like, or the reaction to that, right? Like what we saw in Shiny Happy People. There's all this like the world, the culture stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's this, what I realized is like the same patriarchy, misogyny, masculinity, all of that shapes like purity culture.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like it's the same, it's two sides of the same coin.
Right.
It's interesting to think about not seeing them as oppositions or as like, oh, this is the right's reaction to this, you know, whatever, but as all part of the same ideology, just being kind of pushed out in different directions.
Yep.
Right. Like it's the same assumptions about sort of male like the sort of innate predatory nature of men.
Sure.
You know, and all of that is all sort of baked in, which is what helped me. Like that's what helped me think about the January 6th comparison, not just because I'm constantly thinking about that, but all that's connected.
Which is an interesting like counterpoint to and juxtaposition with the with purity culture. Like you know, men behaving badly and like not being able to control themselves. Like the kind of caricature of sexual aggression counterposed by purity culture, like I think are those have a really I think inextricable relationship that we don't
like the only options were to be like to do the true love waits thing or to be a backwards hat dude burning something at Woodstock. And those are the, you know, so.
Well, I want to give as my cult favorite. It's kind of it's a throwback cult favorite because we're, you know, just hanging out in the 90s. I'm going to give a shout out to other things that were happening musically in 1999.
Yeah.
Because I do not want listeners who perhaps were too young to remember, or perhaps were not even born in 1999. This was not the only musical scene. And so, you know, coming off, you know how I love Riot Girl bands and the kinds of things that were coming out of that specific musical scene. Sleater-Kinney's Hot Rock album was put out in February of 1999 and it rules. So I just want to give a plug perhaps to, you know, if it's been a minute since you've listened or if you've never heard of it, go put your ears on Hot Rock. Also Le Tigre's first like self-titled album came out in 1999 and Le Tigre, of course, being the one of the you know, bands that Bikini Kill's Kathleen Hanna, the amazing, the myth, the legend, the wonder that she is, made. And so Le Tigre put out their self-titled LP that album too that year
It's a great
as well.
year.
So
99 was a great year for music.
I mean,
in general, but I think it's good to have this to balance this out. 100%.
It's important that we take stock of a fuller landscape. I don't know if I like. Yeah. It's anyway. What's your cult favorite?
My cult favorite is so there was a big wrestling show. We're recording this in mid-July. There was a big wrestling show, and it had a match between my favorite current wrestler, Hangman Adam Page, and the evil John Moxley. It was at AEW's All In, this big stadium show in Texas. But there was an amazing essay written by Colette Arand, my favorite wrestling writer. I've mentioned her before. She has a great book of poetry about wrestling and other things. But there's an essay that I'll link to about the show and how that match was both the culmination of like a year-long storyline, which you don't get as much anymore, and the culmination of like a whole genre and thread of professional wrestling in America that goes all the way back to the 90s. And it was just a great example, and the essay does a great job of talking about sort of the way wrestling works as storytelling and long form storytelling. And it's sort of one of those, if you're like, why do you like wrestling so much? It seems so dumb. The essay is the best answer I have. And so it's really interesting, and it was it's funny. So I read the essay, and then last night or 2 nights ago, on the TV show, Hangman Adam Page, who won the match, had this whole thing about what it means to be a man and offering this like form of masculinity that is so different from what you usually get. He talked about crying, and he talked about bleeding, and it was this he talked about, and he's also been he's always refers to it as the men's world championship because they have a women's world championship, but usually only the women's one. Ooh, something has happened on my phone.
Technology.
Sometimes, but he's now giving it sort of trying to make this equality move of calling it the men's, because they only ever qualify the women's world championship. And then so it was an interesting moment as well. But the essay is great. It's called what is it called? Texas Death Breathes New Life into Professional Wrestling, because it was a Texas Death match. So it's linked there. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are lots of things. The world is trying to come into this podcast episode as much as we try to keep it away with our walls of peace.
I mean, if you have not read the spin piece, Don't Drink the Brown Water, that was co-written by Maureen Callahan, about like, you should.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have a much more detailed breakdown of what exactly went down in Woodstock 99. There are lots of things we should link, including that wrestling piece. I want to read that.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Subscribe, follow us on Apple or Spotify or YouTube even, and follow us on all the socials.
Whatever you do with those technologies of yours on those devices.
Yes. And special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama, and The Vow in 2 weeks. I promise.
You've said it, and so now it has to happen.
It doesn't have to happen. No one cares. We'll see what happens. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.